We can almost guarantee that this lockdown won't end on its scheduled date of midnight on Friday. So how long can we expect to have to stay at home? John Barilaro is the New South Wales Deputy Premier. He's also heading up the government's COVID task force, and he joins me on the line this afternoon. G'day, Barra.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for your time as always. 112 new cases across the state today. How concerned are you that this number will increase in coming days?
Yeah, look, I think the 112 is one number, but you touched on it. It's the 34 cases that were infectious in the community before we identified those cases, and 18 of them actually still remain under investigation, exactly what their links are. So that's where the risk is. So it's not the headline figure of 112, it's actually those that have been in the community. And that's a big number again. It continues to be stubborn. It's definite that, we want a zero community transmission. That's one of our benchmarks to get out of lockdown. And what are we up to Monday? By the end of the week, that's a big ask.
So the 34 that we saw today of those that were mixing in the community, you're expecting that number to dramatically increase in coming days?
Yeah, as we've said before, this is so transmissible and so contagious that anyone that has any close contact with someone that's infected, especially in the household, 100% in most cases get infected. So and that's been. Remember, this all started with a couple of cases. You can just see how it escalates when there's 2 or 3 cases, let alone when there's 34 cases in the community, and they have been wandering through those communities. So look, we expect this to still continue to rise. Are we there at the peak yet? Not sure. We'll see what we have tomorrow in the next couple of days, but that'll give us an indication. Are we still going up, or are we on the decline? But we're being very cautious. We've just come off a crisis committee meeting. Everything's on the table. What else can we do to minimise movement, especially in those couple of LGAs?
So lockdown is scheduled to end this Friday. That seems to be highly unlikely. Are we talking weeks here? If that number of those who are infectious in the community, if that number increases, are we talking weeks? And could it be the end of August before we come out of lockdown?
Well, there's been no conversation that this will go beyond the end of August. But those conversations about what happens this Friday will be discussed in the next couple of days. So you do expect the Premier to have more to say. One thing we've said from the outset, we're going to be clear and give certainty up front. If it means another couple of weeks, so be it. But we'll tell the community early. But those conversations are still being had at Crisis Committee. Tomorrow we'll go through that again. But the Premier will update everybody and be upfront about it. It's just where we are in the state and in this particular crisis is just you've got to be honest with people, give certainty so people can plan, and that's what we're doing.
Could we see even more restrictions introduced?
Well, I mean, what more can you do? You're asking people to stay home unless it's essential or necessary. You've got the 4 reasons you can leave home. When it comes to work, we're saying essential workers. We've never picked on that area of essential work. What is essential work? For everybody, everything could be essential. So there might be an opportunity to tighten maybe some categories about what is essential work. But look, what we haven't been, as we've increased these restrictions over the last few days, you've got to let it run through the community. So you've got to give it a couple of days to come good. But yeah, look, it could mean more restrictions going forward, and we'll make those decisions. But we're not on top of it at the moment, and that's our priority.
The frustrations continue though, as far as the vaccine rollout, and your government, I applaud you for doing this. As far as basically saying for over 40s, go and get the AstraZeneca jab. Whether it be available at pharmacies, vaccination centres, go and get the jab. Consult your GP and get a jab in your arm.
Yeah, look, we've been saying it. Look, I know there's been a lot said about AstraZeneca, and you can only take some of that advice, all of that advice. But the truth is, if you look at Europe, you look at what happened. This morning, the European Championships were played, England versus Italy, and the crowd was a full stadium almost. I think 60,000 people. At the heart of their recovery has been AstraZeneca. So let's not pretend that this is. There's an issue around it. We believe it's safe. Yes, we've now lowered it to the age of 40 and over, and we're offering it in our centres and GPs and the pharmacists across the state. So that's just going to continue to grow that network. And if you're 18 to 39, go see your local GP. If you're still up for it, have a chat to your GP. Go through your health record, and you'll be able to also access it. So, my message has been from the outset: if it's AstraZeneca or Pfizer, get the jab, get the vaccine. We're going to need it. We're going to need to get this population up to 50, 60, 70% of vaccination if we've got any chance of actually having some level of normal again.
Question from one of our listeners, Nino, who says wants to know, Deputy Premier, wants to know why the Fairfield Vaccine Hub is only open to teachers and frontline workers.
Because our priority, a couple of our priorities, of course, is our frontline workers, and we've said that, and that's very important. You know that they're the ones that are at the coalface of this. They're facing those infected persons or those close contacts each and every day. We also want to get kids back to school, and that has to be our number one priority. So those teachers in those particular LGAs are going to be at high risk, and therefore, we as a government, we do look at priority groups, and in this case, we're saying teachers and frontline health workers are the priorities in those LGAs of Fairfield, Canterbury, Bankstown, and Liverpool, and that is to say we can get some level of normal back, and that's the priority. That's where the outbreak is at the moment. That's where our greatest concerns are in those LGAs.
Still on the vaccine rollout, there seems to be a degree of confusion in the medical community regarding bringing the second AstraZeneca dose forward. One of my colleagues here at TGB is due for her second AstraZeneca vaccine in August. She's 6 weeks into her 12-week wait at the moment between jabs 1 and 2. She rang up her GP today to see if she could bring the second dose forward and have it now, but was told they're not authorised to do that. So is your government communicating the new advice to GPs, or is that a federal responsibility?
Well, I think everybody has a responsibility, and I actually can't give you that answer. I always assumed it was a 12-week. I've seen online people saying they've been getting it at 9 and 10 weeks, and that advice has changed. But look, I don't want to give any false advice on radio. I'm happy to update you offline and just make sure I give you the right answer.
Well, certainly you can do it now at 8 weeks. So I've got another month to go until my second AstraZeneca jab, but I can bring it forward to 8 weeks from 12. That is something I have confirmed with my GP this morning.
Well, that's good. Then that might be the new rule, and if that's the case, that's great news. It means more people are getting their second jab. That takes you in a couple of months. That's not bad result. It's all August, September. We want to get these rates up. So, but for the rest of the population, I'd rather get you the right info and see if it's anything shorter than that.
How about you and your colleagues? Are you any closer to coming up with more financial support for households and businesses suffering from these extended lockdowns? I mean, we're expecting some sort of joint media conference between the Commonwealth and the state government. When will that happen?
Yeah, look, I know that the Premier and the Treasurer have led the charge here, and they've been talking with our federal counterparts, with the Prime Minister and the Federal Treasurer, and I think that's imminent now. They've been working through that. That'll have to come into line. If we're going to go into further lockdown, businesses can probably cop a week or two. Beyond that, they can't survive, and they need cash flow, they need support, and there's ways of doing that. So, look, the Treasurer, he's working on it. I believe, something should be said in the next day or so. And again, that'll be the Premier and the Treasurer that will announce anything in that space. But I can assure people we haven't forgotten about them. The government is working on a package, has been, after the first package, and that was a $1.4 billion package just by the state. So if the feds can come to the table, assist the state, or I'm sure we can do even better.
Well, that support package, though, a lot of businesses are still waiting for actually money to go into their bank account. So they're on their knees week 3 of lockdown, and they still haven't received that support package that was announced by your government.
Yeah, look, and I understand that, and normally, and a lot of these grants or support are no different when JobSeeker was around last year. It was on an accrual basis. It's almost like you get it 4 weeks after you needed it, and that's unfortunate how it works. But what it does mean is banks can talk to their financial institutions, businesses can talk to their banks, etc., and their financial institutions and know that it's coming and it gets some cash flow. That's how the JobSeeker approach, with an accrual approach. It's the only way we do it, because people have to come forward with the impacts on their businesses, and you don't feel you can't demonstrate impact until you've actually endured it. It's tough, I get it, but at least there's certainty that if you can get, that there is cash coming at the end of it.
Barrett, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Not a problem, anytime, mate.
Good on you. That's John Barilaro, who's the Deputy Premier of New South Wales and heading up the government's COVID task force.